Robots and food. Good evening, everyone. I'm Orfeo. I'm from Bern, as I just said, Switzerland. Grüß dich. I had many job titles. Worked in business intelligence, in system engineering, as coder, as data science. Came to London to do art school. I worked in many companies. Currently, I'm at Karakuri. Karakuri is a startup that does robotics for the food industry, and that's about my talk. I go through the quick history of Karakuri. It started 18 months ago with these two guys. So this guy here, he made universal music to use MP3 instead of CDs, kind of good step. This guy here introduced multi-core to ARM. He was employee 24. Was later on the CTO of Universal Music, helped to deal with all the kind of bureaucracy. He was not the closest friend of us, I guess, from the open source community, but he did good work there. So these two guys started, and I wanted to build a restaurant that's completely operated by robots. So they made shiny little graphics and renders, went out, tried to get funding, assembled a few people around them, very, very smart people, but they kind of said a restaurant with robots probably doesn't gonna work. And they were also not the people who built them something. So they got these guys, one of them, that's me. And yeah, we need to build a prototype of a machine that can assemble food. We got a shiny render, so yeah, guys built that. That was February, and we actually built it. So we've built a machine that used the robot arm we got from a startup company here in London called Automata. We used cereal dispensers we found on Amazon for £5. We used kitchen scales, hacked them with an Arduino together, wrote a bunch of software to make a prototype to show a concept of how can food production, customization, and mass manufacturing meet, and kind of how can you do parallel food assembly, this time just sweets, which at the beginning is exciting, but at some point it's just enough. So we got some funding about 2 months ago, first round led by Ocado. With that came a lot of press. Sorry, Condé Nast, we don't have you on here. And now we have to build the big version of the machine. So that's all good. That's what we're working on. It is a robot that should assemble food in real time, custom set to the requirements of a user, if it's because of dietary restrictions, because of taste, custom made, fresh, not pre-assembled, laying in the shelf for a long time, record everything it does, that we can help them create stock management on a scale that they don't overorder, but always can deliver to their customer. Now the interesting bit. So if we look at this machine we've built, it has a robot arm. It has a series of dispensers on top. Has the arm, has some sort of communication interface. And in the middle, some sort of brain that does all the magic. For this machine, will be pretty much the same. It's just the mechanical engineers who have the bigger challenges there. So I was hired there to build the software for this company. And yeah, first question, what do I do? This didn't work. So I went for the microservice architecture, go a little bit into detail. My talk will not be highly technical, but I basically set a message broker in the middle of my system, run some Docker containers. Everything had to be produced very, very fast. It was a prototype. I'm currently refining everything for the big architecture for the large machine. But I want to go through the details of the different components. So the ARM. We don't build arms. Other people do that. They do a great job with that. The one you saw in the video, that's a company called Automata. They launched their product about 2 months ago. It's about $5 grand for an arm. That's pretty cheap for a robot arm. But yeah, you come as a software developer and then you start coding and hit F5 and it suddenly knocks down your coffee and yeah, that's unexpected. So yeah, working with hardware is quite a challenge, especially if it's moving. It's quite strong. There's forces you're not expecting. It errors out a lot. You need access to that machine that you can debug your code, that you can test your code. But it's pretty fun to do it. So this specific ARM talks over HTTP, has a REST API where you can send him tool paths about how it should move, how fast it should move. So it needed some sort of brain to talk to it. An obvious choice, Node.js. So question I got asked a lot is, yeah, why not Python? Python is the big thing. But if you look, what's the strength of JavaScript? What's the strength of Node.js? It is very, very good with I/O heavy stuff. And the physical world is I/O heavy. You're constantly waiting. You're waiting because the physical world is slow. You're waiting for an ARM to stop. You're waiting for an ARM to give you feedback. So JavaScript was quite a good decision. I was alone. I had to do front-end bits. One language is enough for me. But I really like to love it for this application because, yeah, it's good. So very simple. That's the only bit I go into code a little bit. The service that controls the ARM is a service that listens for AMQP messages with that kind of format, and then sends one simple method it implements is move ARM. The great thing about that, if I want to replace the ARM that talks through weird socket protocol or is Python script, whatever, I just replace this function. And you can also use stronger ARMs. So we had a party, and we used the robot arm to put spices on the cheese. With the dispensers, pretty much the same. We have these serial dispensers, we have some scales. We're working on bigger things. They're nice renderings, but we actually work on them. Same story here. They have a REST API. We have Node in between. Bad news here. We're about to replace it. That the dispensers have their own AMQP implementation straight on the hardware. So that's something for embedded engineers. And then, yeah, several processes that have to deal with where do you have to move, what's next, how do you log, oh, there's an empty dispenser, who needs to refill. These are all microservices written in Node. They do a pretty good job. It's quite easy to replace them. I'm pretty happy with the architecture and will take quite a lot to the big machine. Where it becomes interesting is, yeah, how do you talk with the machine? So we're in the kitchen. This is pretty hostile environment. We rely on the internet connection, but we can't expect that it's always there. And kitchen, if you order food, you want it. You're not allowed to wait because the machine is under maintenance or the internet is laggy. So we needed to implement a local API that works within the restaurant. But on the other hand, you have services like Deliveroo, Uber Eats, which come from the outside. They have their websites, they have their online ordering systems they use. They need to interconnect. So we built this with Express Node, but you also have a cloud service which syncs these two machines because, yeah, as I said, this connection from the outside is important too. And if we go further, we have multiple machines. We go above the cloud and turn into sky. And who knew that in the 80s? So where are we heading with this? Obviously, there's some buzzwords that are coming from management. We want to learn by looking at the machine and the ingredients. How can we optimize dispensing? How can we optimize parts? By looking at it, by just learning and collecting the data. But the two big goals where I am excited about is kitchens, they will never be completely operated by robots in near future. There will always be a collaboration between people who are often not very well paid, not very well trained. It's not that they're not engineers, and they have to operate these machines. And I think that's a very interesting challenge to solve. And The other bit, which I think where is a big potential, is controlling the whole workflow, whole logistic chain from the field to the plate. And I think the robot in the kitchen is a good place to start, because that's where you actually start understand what people consume, how they consume it, how long certain ingredients stay in the kitchen, and how they walk through the whole chain. And if we're talking about the future, it maybe can be yours, because I'm here. We have lots of jobs at the moment. So yeah, if you're interested. I don't do social media, but I have paper cards, so come and talk to me. I give you to them. And that's it from my side. Happy to chat with you. Ask me all the questions. Thank you.